We all knew the future was bright for Zag freshman Davis Fogle, but who knew the future would be so soon?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Well, today is number 6 in our player preview series, doing a show for every player on Gonzaga's roster, talking about their history, how they ended up here in Spokane. We're also talking about their best and worst case scenarios for this upcoming season. And then we'll close out the show talking realistic role, expected production, and what their future looks like at Gonzaga. We've already talked to Smiley Diani, Braden Huff, Mario St-Siberi, Parker Jefferson, and guard Braden Smith. Today, we are tackling our first player out on the wing, talking about freshman Davis Fogle, who made a big old name for himself with a strong performance on Sunday in Gonzaga's exhibition win over Northwest. Fogle is a 6'7" wing from Anacortes, Washington. Not a place you expect to get a whole lot of Division I talent in any sport. It is a very small coastal town and not the way to get to the San Juan Islands, beautiful area for those who have not been. Anacortes, small little town. Davis Fogle starred there in high school and was kind of starting to make a name for himself out at that level, but was a undersized guard in high school, or at least a normal sized guard, a 1 or a 2, and then he ballooned up to 6'7", then started to get on the national radar more than just the few local schools that were kind of checking him out. But Fogle is somebody who grew up rooting for the Zags, grew up watching Gonzaga basketball during, period of tremendous success for this program under Coach Mark Few. He went to camps as a kid, and so really always wanted to be a Zag, wanted to be a part of this program. And when he had the growth spurt, when he started to really show that he was more than just a capable guard playing at a low high school level, and started to get that true attention from Gonzaga, it really changed everything for Fogle. He ended up transferring to Compass Prep, which is one of those basketball factory schools in Arizona, in Phoenix area in Arizona. And once he played there, that was when he really started to show, oh, this is more than just like, hey, he's a talented local kid. Would be fun to see him play at like a Seattle U or somebody like somewhere like that, to like, oh no, this is a kid who's really going to do it. And Gonzaga was wise to keep tabs on him and wise to put the offer out when they did, because by the time he accepted Gonzaga's offer and committed to the Bulldogs, which happened in July of 2024, he had started to really get interest. He'd already taken a visit to Nebraska, but beyond that, he had offers from Kansas, from St. John's, from Texas Tech, Indiana, Creighton, Washington, LSU, Boise State, many others as well. This is a kid who started to really blossom and show up on the national radar for programs that are, again, Big 12 programs, Big 10 programs, Big East programs. Like, there was a whole lot of interest in this young man, but because he had that connection to Gonzaga, because he'd always wanted to play there, because the staff recognized when he started to have that spurt and when it was clear that he was somebody who could contribute, Gonzaga was all over it. They didn't wait too long. They pounced on the opportunity, snagged a kid who ended up finishing the 2025 class rankings ranked 31st. This is a kid who for most of his high school career was not inside the top 100. He started to sneak into the back half of that top 100. He was in the 80s, the 90s, 75, somewhere around there, and just kept kind of steadily creeping up the rankings with strong performances with Seattle Select on the summer circuit, and then strong performances again at Compass Prep for his senior year of high school. That really vaulted him into the top 50, top 40, and then again where he ultimately landed, which was 31st. That's according to 247 Sports. On 3/Rivals had him 37th. So again, pretty consistent with regards to where he was kind of viewed as a prospect coming in to the 25-26 college basketball season. One of 3 freshmen for Gonzaga, joining, of course, Parker Jefferson, who we spoke about earlier last week, and, of course, Mario Saint-Superi, the superstar from Spain, who we've also already spoken about. So this is our last freshman preview for this team, the highest-ranked domestic freshman out of the pair, of course, and a player that certainly made a name for himself last week, but even before that, he arrived on campus and was drawing a ton of praise from the coaching staff, from the players, was just a sponge in practices, learning, developing, getting better, and kind of learning, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be somebody who can grow and develop within this system? Again, Gonzaga is pretty picky with the types of players that they pursue, and they won't just go after a player because he wants to be here. Davis Fogle made it clear he wanted to be here, but the staff went after him because he showed the ability to, hey, I'm coachable. I'm somebody that you can develop. I'm somebody that will get better, that is not going to have a big ego about playing time, that is just here to work and grow and develop and be somebody who can help this team, whether it's this year, next year, 2 years from now. I am ready to put in that work. And that was the attitude and the mentality that he had throughout the summer that's been voiced by many coaches, many players who have been working with him throughout this time. And we saw that come together. I mean, he will talk craziness first. He played for Team Navy, or Team Blue at Craziness in the Kennel. He had 7 points on 3 of 4 shooting, including knocking down his only 3. I thought he played really good in that game and looked like somebody was like, oh, this is, it's hard to say in a scrimmage game because everybody played. I mean, literally everybody, including the walk-ons, were playing, and in many cases playing big minutes because you don't have that. You only have one team worth of players in a scrimmage game like that. But it looked like, hey, this is maybe somebody who we should keep a closer eye on for playing time this year. And now that conversation is, and that's the reason we're talking about him today, is because that is the conversation in the Zags space right now. Is there an opportunity for Davis Fogle to potentially play a much bigger role as a freshman than we initially anticipated? And that comes for a variety of reasons. Number one, chief among them, the fact that Tyon Grant-Foster, Gonzaga's prized transfer portal addition from Grand Canyon, is currently ineligible to participate for Gonzaga due to an NCAA ruling, which came out on Friday. He is having a preliminary injunction hearing on Thursday in Spokane County. If that preliminary injunction is granted, he will then be likely able to suit up for Gonzaga in the short term, potentially throughout the rest of the season while his lawsuit with the NCAA is ongoing. If that happens, I would imagine Grant-Foster would play for Gonzaga, drop the lawsuit when the season's over, and then we just wash our hands of the whole situation. But there is also a reality where this preliminary injunction is not granted for Grant-Foster, and then that's probably it for him at that point, and he likely moves on and doesn't end up getting to suit up for Gonzaga, which clears up more space in the on the wing, on the perimeter, for Davis Fogle to potentially play. The other thing is that Davis Fogle looked outstanding on Sunday in the exhibition game against Northwest. Obviously, the caveat that it's an exhibition game, the caveat that the quality opponent is not the same caliber of opponent Gonzaga is going to see in the regular season and in conference play. But Davis Fogle led Gonzaga in scoring. He had 18 points in this game. He was 8 of 12 from the field, that including missing his 2 3-point attempts, which means he was 8 of 10 on every other shot outside or inside the 3-point line. He was also 2 of 4 from the free throw line. Didn't do a ton else, only 1 rebound and 1 assist and a steal in his 20 minutes, but was an absolute hellraiser in transition. 3 dunks in this game, 6 of it, 18 points, came on flushes in transition. He was running, he was getting out. He was just a complete menace in the open court. He also had a pair of mid-range jumpers off the dribble late in this game that were just really, really smooth looking shots. He was driving. One of them was driving with his left hand, stopped at around the free throw line, pulled up immediately, knocked it down. That's not an easy shot to make. And for a true freshman to be able to read that situation, start to drive, recognize that he needs to pull up, and then knock that shot down. That is a tough shot that takes many players at Gonzaga a while to develop, whether it just takes them a while to start making it consistently or to start recognizing when to go after it. And again, Davis Fogle making a pair of mid-range jumpers against an NAIA school is not necessarily an indication that, like, he's fully developed in that space or anything like that, but it's a pretty promising sign of where his offensive game is already and where it could potentially be, considering what we have heard about his work, his workman mentality, the fact that he's a sponge and learning from everybody around him. Like, the skill and talent is already at a high level and is only going to continue to get better. But the question now for Davis Fogle is, how much will we see of him as a freshman? Because the expectation up to this point has been very little. That's still a possible scenario, but it's also becoming more and more possible that he is a pretty consistent everyday player for Mark Few and the Zags. We're going to talk about what his upcoming season might look like through the lens of his best and worst case scenarios coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, most people cannot name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether that's their 401ks, their properties, or their investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean and easy to use interface on your laptop or on your phone. And Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. My wife and I spend a lot of time making sure that our finances are put together and up to date, and Monarch makes it so simple for us to review our finances together. We can both see our budgets, our goals, and our spending activity in one place. So don't let financial opportunity fall through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com using code LOCKEDONCollege. Folks, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. One of the great things about FanDuel is that it fits however you like to bet, whether that's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even in jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little bit more juice to your Sundays. Well, even with the Tyon Grant Foster news, Gonzaga's odds to win the 2026 national championship remain at plus 3,500. If you haven't tossed some money down on that, then what are you waiting for? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. Still going through our Davis Fogle player preview episode here, as we are about 2 weeks away from the start of the college basketball season officially. Again, doing these for every player on the roster. And here in the second segment, we're talking best and worst case scenarios. I'll give my quick little caveats here. Best cases within reason, worst cases without injury, meaning every player's best case scenario is they win the Wooden Award, first overall pick in the draft, et cetera, et cetera. It's not realistic for every player, so we're not going to talk about best case scenarios unless they are within what we're considering the realm of possibility. For worst case scenario, again, for every player, it's a blown knee, it's an ACL, it's a season-ending injury. Unless injuries are a part of a player's history, which in many cases they are, we're not going to talk about a worst case scenario. We're going to stick with worst case scenario on the floor, off the court stuff, injury stuff, just not particularly relevant or interesting to talk about, again, unless it is specifically relevant to said player. For Davis Fogle, with the uncertainty at the small forward position because of Tyon Grant Foster's eligibility, even to an extent, Emmanuel Innocente's injury, I don't get the sense that he's going to be out for very long, or that is even something that is super concerning, but he did not play on Sunday in that exhibition game. With those two things, the best case scenario for Davis Fogle is that he is the day one starter at small forward. And obviously without Grant Foster or Innocente on Sunday, Gonzaga did not start Davis Fogle. They started Steele Venters at the 3. He seems like the likely front runner to start there. I'm not sure that's my pick. That's a conversation for another time. Really, it boils down to having two really good three-point shooters and not a lot of defense on the floor with Miller and Venters at the same time. But the best case scenario for Fogle is that he either starts in game one and just never relinquishes that starting role, or that he ends up playing a really big, consistent role. I don't think it's fair to say if he's not starting, it's not the best case. If he's playing 20 minutes a night off the bench, that is absolutely at or near the very top of the best case scenarios for Davis Fogle. That is not what we had been projecting for him, but if he has played well enough in practices, in scrimmages, in these exhibition games, and the opportunity has arisen for him to take on a bigger role, and he jumps and it takes that opportunity and holds on to it for the rest of the season, that is unquestionably a best case scenario for Fogle, and very likely a best case scenario for Gonzaga, because if he has earned that playing time, you're going to give it to him. And if he keeps earning that and keeps playing well and deserves to be on the floor night in and night out, you're going to give him that opportunity. How that happens is pretty similar to what we saw from him in that exhibition game on Sunday, that he continues to be a relentless, fearless slasher and scorer, and that he is an absolute demon in transition. That he is getting out, he's running the floor, that every time Gonzaga forces a turnover or gets a long rebound or has any opportunity to go, the Energizer Bunny on the wing in Fogle is flying up and down the floor. He's getting throw-ahead passes from Mario and Braden and Jalen and everybody else, getting him opportunities to score right at the rim. That 2 to 3 dunks per game, that scoring in transition right at the rim regularly becomes a part of Gonzaga's season. Davis Fogle getting transition dunks is just a part of the year. It's something we're talking about, not like every third game or every sixth game, but pretty much every single game. He is out there scoring in transition. He's running the floor. And when we're in the half court sets, he is relentlessly looking to score. Every time he gets the ball, he's putting his head down. He's driving to the rim. He's trying to score through contact. He's drawing contact, getting to the free throw line. And beyond that, that we see that mid-range shot that Mark Few has talked about already in post-game press conferences, that showed up when he drilled a pair of 15-foot jump shots in that exhibition game on Sunday, that he is not just a scorer at the rim or in transition. That yes, he likes to put the ball on the deck, and yes, he likes to drive towards the basket, but that ability to stop, pull up, and hit open jump shots remains there. That he is a consistent threat from 15 feet away from the rim, and a threat in transition, and a threat in terms of driving straight to the basket and scoring that way. He's long, he's wiry, he's got some filling out to do physically, but right now, because he's skinny and tall and long, the ability to draw contact is there. Like, this is a skill that he should be able to develop and take advantage of and get to the free throw line. As long as he is trying to get to the rim, he should be able to get those whistles going his direction. The best case scenario for Davis Fogle is that he's mature enough to read the correct situations. Right now, we have seen a player who gets the ball and looks to score. He's a little bit one-dimensional in that way, and we're talking about an incredibly small sample size of one exhibition game and one 20-minute scrimmage game. But in those games, we have seen a player who is wired to score and is not displaying a whole lot else. In the best case scenario, we start to see that happen. We see the playmaking, we see the facilitation, we see as he gets more comfortable in Gonzaga's offense with what the staff is looking for him to do, that he starts making those reads. He can start coming off of screens. He can start being somebody to be trusted to make those entry passes. He's a ball mover on offense who, yeah, he's still looking to drive and looking to score, but he doesn't become a black hole. He doesn't become somebody who is difficult to play when he's struggling offensively because he's not adding anything else to the team. The best case scenario for Davis Fogle is that instead of just scoring at the rim and just hitting those mid-range jumpers, he shows an ability to shoot from beyond the arc as well. Right now, that is a pretty big mystery in terms of his skill set. He was not labeled as a great three-point shooter coming out of high school. And right now, his three-point shot is more theoretical than anything else. In a best-case scenario, when he is left open, if he's coming off screens and defenders are going under, or if he's just open on the perimeter because of a lapse on the defense, that he's making teams pay. I don't think you're going to see Davis Fogle come out and shoot 40+% from three. That would be obviously the absolute best case scenario, but I think it would be considered within the realm of best case scenario if he was 37, 38%. I also don't expect a big volume of threes necessarily, because I don't think that's what he's on the floor to do, but when he's left open, he makes opponents pay, and they are forced to defend him out there because they know he can knock down those shots. The best case scenario for Davis Fogle is that he holds his own defensively. He may not be elite on that end of the floor, but he makes smart reads. He moves his feet laterally well. He does not let his skinniness and physicality become a deterrent for him. He makes smart decisions, like he might go for steals and do that, but he's not committing a bunch of cheap fouls. He's keeping defenders in front of him. He's playing good defense on the perimeter. If he gets caught in switches and he has to defend down low, he's using his body, he's using his size to impact the game defensively as best as he can. All of this leads to a scenario where Davis Fogle is the team's kind of breakout. He's the breakout star. Maybe he wins WCC Newcomer of the Year. Maybe he even earns all WCC honors. Second team, honorable mention. Maybe if the planets align perfectly, we're talking first team, it could happen for Davis Fogle. And then after the season, when we lose Adam Miller, when you lose Tyon Grant-Foster, when you lose Jalen Worley, all those guys are done after this year. Davis Fogle feels like the big piece who's going to replace that production and be a potential starter and star for Gonzaga in their first year in the Pac-12 in 26-27. What are the worst case scenarios for Davis Fogle? Well, it's that he's buried on the depth chart. It's that even with the uncertainty around Tyon Grant-Foster and the nagging injury bothering Emmanuel Inochente at the time, that Davis Fogle's out of the rotation. And again, there are 10 players. If Grant-Foster plays, there are 10 players that could all very easily be in front of Davis Fogle. Mark Few doesn't play 10. She sure as heck doesn't play 11. And with Braden Smith and Adam Miller and Tyon Grant-Foster and Graham Ike and Braden Huff, and then with Ismaila Diani and Mario Saint-Superi and Steele Venters and Jalen Worley and Emmanuel Inochente, that's 10 right there. So even take out Grant-Foster, that's still 10 in front, or that's still 9 in front of Fogle, with him being the 10th. And in a worst case scenario for Fogle, and again, this may not be that bad of a scenario, but it's just that he plays minutes similar to a 10th man. He plays most games, but it's 4 to 5 minutes per night. Often it's in garbage time. In close games, he's not on the floor. He doesn't play against Kentucky and UCLA and Oregon, but he gets 8 minutes against Pacific and San Diego and teams like that. And in the worst case scenario for Fogle, he doesn't handle that well. And I don't think that means like pouty and sulky. That would be incredibly surprising. Gonzaga doesn't recruit players like that. Certainly they don't bring in freshmen who are going to pout about not playing. That's just not something that happens. It would more so be where maybe he's pressing. Maybe he feels like he has to take advantage of the minutes that are given to him, and that causes him to make mistakes or be hard on himself because he's not playing well and feels like I haven't played in a week and a half and now I'm on the floor and I made a dumb mistake and I'm panicked about it. The coaching staff is familiar with this situation, can deal with this situation. If Fogle is as coachable as we have all heard that he is, which I believe is true, those things will get ironed out. But that's the worst case scenario, is that he's struggling to adapt to not playing big minutes for this Gonzaga team. Other things that you would see, the outside shot's not there. Maybe he's forcing too many threes, shooting like 25%, but shooting more of them than he should be. The playmaking facilitation skills aren't there. He's struggling to learn the offense. Think a little bit of like a Michael Ajayi situation where you can just tell that he's processing when he has the ball. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to look here. I'm supposed to look there. I'm supposed to turn here. And you can just see that that's happening as opposed to him playing with any kind of fluidity and comfort in the offense. Again, a true freshman struggling a little bit with processing, far from a concern, far from an issue that Gonzaga fans should be worried about. But it is within the realm of the worst case scenarios for Fogle this year, is that you can see that struggle is there and it's potentially costing him an opportunity to play more minutes for this team. And then for Fogle, the worst case scenario is that he's just limited defensively. Freshmen tend to struggle on defense, so that's not going to be a surprise either. Him, going for steals and committing stupid fouls is probably going to happen because it happens to pretty much every freshman on the planet when they're playing college basketball. Getting caught in switches, rotating over a step slow, jumping into a three-point shooter, things like that are happening. But in the worst case scenario, they're kind of still happening. They keep happening. We don't really see a ton of obvious growth in that space on the defensive end of the floor. The worst case scenario for Davis Fogle really isn't something that would be a big cause for concern this season. It would just be like, oh, he's still developing and we need to see what that looks like. But at the end of the year, instead of being like thrilled and pumped and jacked of like, this dude's going to start for us next year at the 3 and we're going to be in good shape, it's more like, well, maybe he's going to be the 6th man next year. Maybe he's going to be the 7th man next year. Maybe Gonzaga needs to go get a wing in the transfer portal next year instead of just throwing the job to Fogle right away as a sophomore. Well, what's the most likely outcome for Fogle? We don't know the Grant Foster situation. We're going to take a look at what I expect Fogle's role to be with Tyon Grant Foster, what his role will be without Tyon Grant Foster, and what his future might look like in Spokane, all coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball is nearly here, and I could not be more excited. The rivalries, the energy in the crowd, there is just nothing like college basketball. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. There's endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's why I use Gametime, because it's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices and with no surprise fees. What you see is what you get. I pulled up Gametime just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals for a whole bunch of college basketball games. It's honest, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it is less stressful, truly, than any other way that I have bought tickets. If you're looking for Gonzaga, Oklahoma, November 8th, Spokane Arena. It's a tough ticket to get. They still got them on Gametime. You can get a pair of tickets for $102 a pop in section 221 right now. So take the guesswork out of buying college tickets by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, still talking Davis Fogle player preview as we are 2 weeks away from the start of the college basketball season officially when Gonzaga takes on Texas Southern November 3rd at the McCarthy Athletic Center. We talked about Fogle's history. We talked about him being a smaller guard at Anacortes High School in Washington to ballooning up to playing at Compass Prep to committing to Gonzaga. And then we talked about the strong performance from him on Sunday in Gonzaga's exhibition win over Northwest. And we talked about what his best and worst case scenarios look like for this upcoming season. Now we're going to take a look at his most realistic role and production. And because the Tyon Grant Foster situation remains unresolved, I kind of take a look at the realistic role for Fogle based on whether Gonzaga has Grant Foster or not. So with Grant Foster, let's assume the preliminary injunction hearing is granted and Grant Foster is able to suit up for Gonzaga this season. That kind of puts Fogle as the 10th man, maybe the 11th man. And every year we do this. Every year we have this conversation on the show where there's a player or two who people want, people hope, people believe belong in the rotation. And every year Mark Few plays, if we're lucky, 9, usually 8, sometimes 7. It is a very justified thing to be critical of Mark Few over, but it's also something that's unlikely to change. And so when I talk about players who I think are going to be outside the rotation, often I'll get feedback. People who are like, well, how, Fogle deserves to play. Maybe. But if you think that somebody that I'm talking about is outside, does not belong outside the rotation, who are you kicking out of the rotation? Like, I think it's easy to say, well, you're wrong. Davis Fogle should be in the rotation. Great. Who's not then? Because Mark Few's not playing 11 guys. And even if Grant Foster is eligible or is not eligible, he's probably not playing 10. So I don't see who Fogle plays over, even though he looked great on Sunday. You're talking about, again, a wing rotation. Does Davis Fogle kick Steele Venters out of the rotation? No, there's no way that would happen. Okay, does he kick Jalen Worley out of the rotation? No, Worley's playing the 4 anyway, so I don't really think that's, it doesn't really make sense that he would replace him unless he was going to play 4, which doesn't make sense. Does he kick Emmanuel Innocente out of the rotation after Emmanuel played so great for Gonzaga last year? I don't think so. Does he kick Mario Saint-Superi out of the rotation? I don't think so either. So I'm just not sure where the playing time will really come from for Davis Fogle in his first year. I think with or without Grant Foster, I expect Fogle to look kind of like Julian Strawther's freshman year, which was the 2020-21 season when Gonzaga did not lose a game until they got absolutely stomped on by Baylor in the national championship. And if you're thinking, oh, I didn't remember Julian Strawther being on that team, it's because he didn't play very much. Strawther appeared in 25 games. So he played pretty much every game, but he only played 7 minutes a night. And if you recall that Gonzaga team, they beat the tar out of most of the teams that they played. So most of Julian Strawther's minutes came in garbage time. I kind of think that's the case for Davis Fogle, is that he plays most games, but that he's playing some nights it's 3 minutes, some nights it's 10 minutes, some nights it's not at all. I think that's the most likely scenario for Davis Fogle. And if Grant Foster is not playing, I think that ticks up a little bit. But I still don't see an obvious, clear path to consistent playing time. That doesn't mean that it couldn't happen over the course of the season. Whether he just overtakes Venters or Inocente or somebody else in Gonzaga's rotation. I think that is possible because he looked really good in those exhibition games, or in that exhibition game and that craziness. But I think the most likely scenario still for Davis Fogle is just that he ends up kind of on the outside looking in of a rotation spot for Gonzaga this upcoming season. With Worley playing a lot at the 4, a situation where Grant Foster is not around, it looks likely that Steele Venters would start in his place. Again, may not be my preferred choice. If it's not Venters, I think it would be Inocente, only because it's pretty clear that Worley is going to fit most of his minutes in as a small ball 4. I would like them to start Worley at the 3. I think that would be fantastic, but they seem to be seemingly like they're going to go with Venters. Again, it could be Inocente if he's healthy. Either way, I don't think it's Fogle who ends up starting in place of either of those guys, but whoever isn't starting, if Venters is starting, Worley and Inocente are going to mix in a bunch of minutes at the 3. And you're going to have a lot of 2-guard lineups with Smith and St. Superi on the floor. So I think Fogle ends up kind of getting some opportunities at times and in some spurts, and certainly against some weaker opponents. But I don't see a reality where he's a super consistent regular rotation player, barring a more serious injury for Emmanuel Inocente or something of that nature. So give me put some actual numbers on it here. Give me 10-ish minutes per game, maybe 8 to 9 minutes a game most nights he's playing. Give me 3 to 4 points per game, something. Again, Strawther was 25 games, 7.5 minutes, 3.5 points. Honestly, pretty much hit me with that for Davis Fogle. Like, that feels within the realm of possibility for Fogle. And it's not he's, not good enough. It's more of like Gonzaga has an insane amount of depth on the wing, and Mark Few tends to play veteran guys over freshmen. And so I think that's kind of what's going to happen here. But Fogle has an incredibly bright future in a Gonzaga uniform. And again, after this year, we don't know if Grant Foster will play this year, but he's not going to play next year. So he's going to be out the door. Adam Miller's out of eligibility after this year. Jalen Worley is out of eligibility after this year. That's 3 players on the wing gone after this season. Venters will have more eligibility if he wants it. It's possible he will move on after a healthy season, but he does not have to. So I'm not going to assume that he will not be here after this year. Similarly, Inocente should be back. Same with Braden Smith and Mario St. Superi in the backcourt. But those 3 departures clear up a ton of opportunity for Davis Fogle. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if he started as a sophomore in the 26-27 season. I think it's probably most likely that he ends up like a super 6th man and playing a huge role off the bench as a sophomore, but it could be, that would be if Venters comes back. I think if Venters is back, he starts at the 3, Fogle comes off the bench, and Gonzaga goes out and gets a 2-guard, or they start the 2-point guards together, and it's something like Smith, St. Superi, Venters, Huff, and either Diani or another big, and Fogle's coming off the bench. But it wouldn't stun me if he's good enough as a sophomore to start right away for this Gonzaga team. In terms of future outside of that, we usually talk NBA future. It's just way too early to tell. I'll say this. The skills that are most valuable in the modern NBA for wings, 3 and D, outside shooting and defense, it's really too early to know a lot about Davis Fogle's profile, but I will say that the 2 things that seem to be his weaknesses at this point are 3-point shooting and defense. It's a little unfair to categorize defense because most freshmen struggle on that end of the floor, but I don't think he didn't come here based on his defense. He's a slasher and a mid-range scorer and somebody who's great in getting out and scoring in transition. Those skills are not as coveted in the NBA as 3-point shooting and lockdown defense. So that, I think, puts Fogle in a tough spot where he'd need to improve dramatically in the areas that are not considered his strengths right now. But he's incredibly young. He has yet to play his first official collegiate basketball game. So pretending I know anything about his NBA future is silly, so I'm not going to. But I do think that there are that his profile is not set up right now to look super successful in the eyes of NBA scouts, but that could very, very easily change. It's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. We'll be back a couple more shows this week. We got more of these player previews. We're going to be at Media Day on Thursday in Las Vegas, talking to Mark Few, talking to a couple of the Gonzaga players, talking to some other coaches around the West Coast Conference. So that show will be out on Friday. Going to be a super fun one for y'all there as well. Thanks again for listening, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.